Before we get going here, um, the guys in Germany will not be joining us today because they are celebrating their 10th anniversary. So that's pretty exciting for them. That'd be cool if you guys shoot them a note or whatever people do on that. What? Oh, you got a slide? Ah, okay. Well, I look at a slide. Oh, there we go. There we go. Um, so yeah, it's the guys, Felix and Dominiqu's 10th anniversary for this bar. And I believe I've been here before. Ali and I have been to both of their bars and to their trade show. And I believe this is the one that they were bartenders at and they bought it off the old owner. So pretty cool way to leverage up, then bought a second one and then do one of the cooler trade shows in Europe. So congratulations to both of them. They're both terrific guys. Um, I would love to hear from you guys. Any wins you've had in general, or with this particular endeavor that we're working on. I know it's a little cumbersome up front, like trying to get the numbers together and to figure things out. But I'd love to hear from any of you, or if anyone's stuck too. If you're stuck somewhere, you can let me know, and maybe it'll be worked into today what we're covering, or I can circle back with you afterwards. But anyone got any wins to share, or anywhere they're stuck?
I can jump in. So I've been painstakingly going through and pulling all of our data from all six of our restaurants and our brewery.
Mm,
And on the good note, I found some great tools and resources that Toast has that makes it very easy. And then
cool.
also realized in the initial setup, because we weren't reporting like this or had a need for this data, that I was able to make some fixes. So when we go to do this next quarter, it's going to be much easier.
Yeah, that's it. Once you get this set up, like it's a program, right? It's not a prescription, so it gets set and you tweak it. And in the initial data set, I remember the first time I did this at my venues, like I thought something was wrong because like the numbers were just weren't adding up, but it's just the nature of the business, right? And once you start to understand the numbers, that's where we hit the entry point where we can start to influence them, if not control them. So hopefully you guys are gonna see that over the coming weeks, and it's pretty illuminating when you break your business up. Like we're used to looking at, well, how did we do last week, and did we make any money? To, well, why didn't we make the money, or where did we have opportunities to do better, not only shift by shift, but like station by station. So that's I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad to see the numbers are coming together. Anybody else? Who else have we got? It doesn't necessarily have to be with the numbers here. It could be just any good news you've had with your business in the last week or two? Adrian, you must have something happening up there. It's all those venues.
Um, Nothing, no wins, but I gotta say, so we're coming off of our busy season, and we haven't had a lot of time to do literally anything. We've been trying, but it's kind of nice. This is the first time we've gone into the fall. We're like, okay, like we have our hospitality stuff ready to roll again, and being like, okay, like now we're switching gears and we're back to hospitality, locals. Everything is kind of calmed down, so it's nice to already have a plan in place now, like right away, instead of being like, okay, what are we going to do? So we took all our tools that we learned at the first half of the year and have now like started to implement them right away and kind of like picked up where we left off. And then the numbers and, learning all about that is the second piece because obviously like hospitality and then trying to keep our sales as high as possible is definitely going to help us going into our fall and our winter season. So
Yeah,
I mean, this is the first time where we've really gone into September feeling really good about where we are at and where we're going, which is really nice.
that's great. I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the hospitality side, like it wasn't until like late in year two for me in ownership when I decided like, okay, we've got our basic systems in place, but I'm going to triple down now on hospitality,
Yeah.
and really started to celebrate the staff when we were getting the wins.
Hmm.
And we always had these like red books, like log books that I go venue to venue and give myself an ulcer reading these red books, like, the dishwasher blew up. We ran out of our most popular wine on Friday at 6 o'clock in the evening, like all this shit that I just wanted to jump off a bridge. And so one of my staff, in a cheeky way, she bought this green book that sat beside the red book, and it was like good news only in this book for Sean.
Yeah.
And people started to fill it out, and they started to find each other, like, writing things in about their teammates. And, hey, I was having a really tough shift, and the manager was supposed to go home at 5 o'clock, and she stayed with me for an extra 45 minutes. And this happened, and this customer who's normally a prick was nice to us today. And you know what I mean? I was like, okay, I need more of this green book activity.
I think we
But
should do that.
yeah,
That's really nice.
the simple act of writing and calling out your teammates for doing something good, like people
Yeah.
just started doing more good things,
Yeah. It
or
is
feeling
definitely
bad that
hard.
so and so wasn't written up.
Yeah, it's
What's that?
hard not to focus on the negative, because I know that
Right.
they're improving, but obviously not the speed that we'd like them to. So it can be discouraging how long it actually takes to like take bad behavior and redirect it. We definitely underestimated how like how bad behavior, like how deep it actually runs in certain people. So how long it actually takes to get them to turn it around and go in a different direction was a little eye-opening for us. But it is, I mean, we do have some wins, but like whenever you hear like three losses, it kind of overshadows the wins for sure for us. So it
Yeah,
would be nice too, but we're getting there, but
that's good.
slow
Well,
slow process.
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
So today we are going to. Um, I really want to make sure that you guys have got your data set, and then from next week on, we're just going to power through the back end of this optimization. And so there's two things that I want to accomplish today. One is to just go deep with the numbers, make sure everyone's got it. Anything that we can solve on the call, we will. Anything that we can't, I'm happy to jump on a call with you and your team. You know, late this week, all of next week, whatever works. Um, we've talked about this, that we're going to look at and the size of the prize, which we're going to drill down, and we're also going to touch on the ergonomic side today, like what uh, what things are possible. Everyone's different, right? All of your venues are different. Your budgets are different. Your state of construction in the bar. Like I had one bar that was designed actually by bartenders, another bar that was designed by, I don't know, a mental patient. It just didn't make any sense, and like we made some modifications to that space that made a huge difference, but I didn't have the money to put in a new $25,000 well at the time. So we're going to work through that today. The numbers is where a lot of folks get stuck and kind of back away from. And I'm going to keep encouraging you, if you are stuck or if it doesn't make sense, just ask me. I can help you in 20 minutes on a call to get through this. I mentioned the bar meeting last call, and the reason for that is this is definitely one of those programs that you can't do by yourself. You need participation by your bar team, not only to figure some things out, but to execute, right? They're the ones in the station every day. What I told my team is that we did things opposite to how most bars do them, right? When a bar is doing $40,000 a week and break evens, 41. People start trying lunches and bingo nights and whatever people do. I said, fuck that. We're going to control the controllables. There is money on the table during prime time. That prime time might be 12 hours a week of peak hours. It could be 22 hours a week, depending on how your venue's set up and how busy you are. But controlling this, I promise you, when you build from the inside out, it's a much better business, right? And we want to get to a place. I always used to say to my team, I wish every night was New Year's Eve, right? That's how I want to be. I just want it to be full. I don't want you guys to be overwhelmed. I want you to be calm, but I want you to be highly productive. I want you to be making a ton of money. I want the business to be making a ton of money, and that's what we're building it for. So this is what I drilled in. Your numbers are different. It's really important you guys understand what your average bartender not can do, but actually does do during peak hours. Some of you have a more elaborate POS. You can just figure it out. Say, hey, here's my peak hours. The threshold is X. How much is each bartender doing inside of that? And these things fluctuate, right? Like working bar one, station one has a better opportunity than bar three, station three, right? So it changes, but we're going to find out the average dollar per hour for your bartenders. And then we're going to help them understand that like every minute is worth $10 if it was $600 per hour. If it's, if you're doing 1,200, if you're in New York City and you're doing 1,200 per hour because your drinks are $29 a drink, that's $20 a minute, right? And it's 32 cents a second rather than 16 cents a second. So we really want to just start to shift the thinking around, we've got peak hours, we've got these shoulder hours that we're building up to peak, and then we've got our off-peak hours. And finally, at that meeting, what I always talk about is the vision that I really want to be the best that we can be. Why not? Why wouldn't we want to do that? Why wouldn't we want to honor our guests' commitment to us and get them up to the bar faster, get them their drinks faster, and so that they can enjoy their company and enjoy the music and not be stressed out, wondering if we're at the right place in time to get drinks. Of course, that it's a win-win-win, right? Yep, the house wins, no doubt about it. We go faster, we make more, we make people happier, house wins. But so do you as the bartender in lockstep with us, right? As a percentage of your revenue, you're making tips, and the guest absolutely wins, right? And we're not saying do not offer hospitality. In fact, hospitality can increase at the same time that your dollar per hour increases, right? The more comfortable you get, the better we get the bar set, the better we get our program set. Here's where your staff really come in. They know what all the roadblocks are. And even if they're not front of mind right now, they'll become front of mind if you keep asking them to help you figure out where these roadblocks are behind the bar and where the springboards are. Now, some of the things might not be, hey, wouldn't it be great? The other bar I work at has this. No, well, we're not going to get that. And here's why. Right. But they might have some ideas, little things that help move things along. And then finally, when it comes to making these changes and then sticking to the new plan, I literally needed a written confirmation from my staff to say, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're doing it. And I need you to tell me that you're with me and you're going to go through the awkwardness of the changes that we're going to make and everything else. I know we're all creatures of habit, but I can't have anyone throwing sand in the gears. Or worse, I can't have anyone sabotaging the project here. We want to win, and this is what it takes to win. So that's a staff meeting. Has anyone had talked to their team yet about this? Has anyone had any pushback? Because I did, and I had to navigate through it. So anyone has had any issues so far with their team? If not, it's just because you haven't implemented the changes.
We uh we did a lot of changes, not necessarily dialed into this, but we had to do stuff before summer.
Uh-huh.
Um, and in my experience, partly because my old bar managers, but basically, like you said, every single change is always the worst thing ever, it seems like. But this year they came around pretty quick to like the batch cocktails and there was a few who were just like, oh my God, we're not making drinks. I'm like, we're batching our top 12, that's not like you're still bartending. Um,
Right.
but that was our beginning thing, but we haven't really dialed into this as far as speed and efficiency. But look, I guess we're a little ahead of the game because we already kind of redid our programs, and now we just got to figure out how to dial them in like step two to make them faster and more profitable.
Great.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
hate it. They hate it if
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And like on that point, Scott, that's one of the most common ones that like if we're doing like a batching for efficiency and they say, oh, well, we're not bartending anymore. It's like, well, to me, the most important component of bartending is hospitality, right? Like if you want to be a chef behind the scenes, putting together ingredients and pumping out food, like I get that, but that's not bartending. Like bartending is you're on stage and you're here to take care of the guests. You happen to make drinks, right? Like that's part of the
Yeah,
deal, but it's not the most important thing to me, anyways.
that definitely helped push the cause. I don't know if their hospitality improved with the batching and speeding up of everything as fast as much as we hoped. I think a lot of them are creatures of habits that were still doing the same thing and putting their head down, but now with batch cocktails. So, so that's been the struggle over the summer is like weeding those people out. But yeah, we definitely, I would say we still have a handful who probably would make a better chef, which is what we just
Yeah,
keep drilling down. I tell them it's like 25% of the job is making drinks.
right, right. And
Um,
that's it. And for the once we get through and make these changes, that the step is like when we look and you start to analyze, okay, well, what worked, what mattered, what bought us 5 seconds here and 10 seconds there, and what sped things up, through these bottlenecks. That's a that's a piece you want to capture, and then the person in charge of the project's got to audit that, because you'll find this stuff all slips right back to where it was. And it's like every pre-shift saying, hey, listen, we're slipping on these three things here. We're going to continue to do it the new way until it becomes habit. But we'll talk about that next week.
Cool.
So that's the goal. Whatever your number, the brainstorming. What I'm going to recommend is that you talk about it at the meeting. You talk about it at pre-shift. I kept a clipboard behind the bar, and I said, hey, any good ideas that you guys have, or further identifying roadblocks here, and I gave a prize every week. And that, it's like, what, $50 coffee card, $100 to hear, whatever it was. I said, okay, it'll take about a month to get all the ideas and get it out, but we just incentivize our staff to help themselves, to help us, and work it through. We've dropped in here just some actual clients that we've worked with that brainstormed and said, hey, what are the problems here? So this is STK. It's like a national chain that we did a big block of work with. They talked about the equipment, the glassware, bar backs kind of leaving the bar when they needed them, no systems for communication to management. These are bigger properties, and they're like, okay, fuck, I need help here, and I don't know how to get a hold of you. Inaccurate liquor pulls, whatever it is, they just kind of drop. Then they said, all right, what actions required? What are we going to do about it? Who's accountable for this? Et cetera, et cetera. We put a second one in here for you guys. This is a client in Toronto. You can see, and we'll put this deck up for you guys as well, but you can see, who's or what sort of things they were struggling with. Some of these things are difficult for the bartenders or surfers, understanding like who the top and weak bartenders are and how to schedule them. Like, okay, that was tough for them. Weak bartenders had to be weeded out. Like they found they had a discrepancy of over 50% from their top 20 to the bottom 20. And these are all people that have been with them 6 months or longer. So when you look at that opportunity cost, it's like, oh, but that could be a scheduling issue. Maybe those folks would be great during the week and you put the other people on the weekend. This practice has led to roughly 12% increase during sales at peak hours. So this place here, Barrow, is the size of a small city. It's 4 floors as a nightclub. It has a gorgeous rooftop bar, restaurant bar. Like it's a stunning property. And think about that. These practices have led to 12% increase, right? These guys do, I don't know, 50, 60,000 bucks on a busy night. So that's real money and none of these changes that they made were 10% changes or 15% changes. They were all 1, 2, 3%. Right. So it really adds up. So that's a step-by-step, asking your staff for those 1% wins as you go through, and then making sure your team's on board. Okay, so I want to get into the numbers now and make sure, does everyone on this call have their data broken down? We're going to walk through it step by step here in your critical numbers. So it's important that you're breaking out your revenue, right? Beverage revenue, food revenue, merchandise, if you've got a significant number, other, if you do wine tastings, whatever other is. So it's important that all these things are broken out. And then from there, I'd have my kitchen looking at the food, of course, and have my bar looking at the beverage. And from there, I want to understand my total weekly beverage. And then for me, and you guys could decide differently, you might want to only break it into 2 sections. But for me, we took our peak hours, right? So you got to decide on that threshold. Like once we hit $2,000 collectively per hour, we're in peak. And then I had shoulder shifts because I want to track how we were moving each week. So our shoulder shifts, if $2,000 was the floor for our peak hours, maybe $500 was our off peak, and then 500 to $1,999 was our shoulder, right? So it's just deciding what those markers are for your business and then how many hours of each you have and what the collective dollars are. Does that make sense? Just jump off mute at any time if any of this doesn't make sense. So I like to look at it in a three-phase: peak, shoulder, and off peak. It helps us for scheduling. It sees what's growing, what's moving in the business. And you'll see that like once you get this moving, like things are going to shift around pretty quickly, like within a couple of months that what typically happens is when you move that revenue ceiling up, your shoulder shifts become wider, right? Your clientele is looking for like a buzz, a certain feeling, and that feeling isn't five deep. I don't like to be at a bar that's five deep, but I like to be at a bar that's got this great buzz. I also don't like to be at a bar on a Friday night that's dead, right? So we're finding that balance in between now. And it's important now to look at your net beverage profits, right? Not your whole portfolio, not food and everything included, because now you're blending. So we're taking just our beverage revenue, our beverage costs, our labor against those beverage costs. So some of that, for example, with the person who was responsible for the business for the night, if the GM was in that night, his or her wage was split by the percentage breakdown of food to beverage, right? On the assumption that if we're doing 70% beverage, he or she's more needed to be on the floor running that. Every other manager that was working, there was a calculation base. Bar people were just on bar, kitchen people were just on kitchen. But we broke those wages down and we came up with, and it's not a perfect science, but you want to know, what does my business earn from beverage? And what does it earn from food and then other? Okay, so that's the basics. And from there, this is the most important part in my my estimation. There's two ways that we're going to look at this. One is a team value, and the other is an individual value. There is merit and there's reasons to really drill down into the individual, which is more to do with coaching of those individuals, and in some cases scheduling. But what's most important in my mind is each station gets assigned a value, right? So, and by station, you could say, all right, the main bar one is long. It has, three different wells at it. We're just going to call that, one station or one group or one team. Okay. For me, I like to look at it a bit tighter than that. We might have service bar down this end in one station, and then we've got the two workhorse stations here. I'm going to look at those workhorses because I want to manipulate them individually. Right? I don't want the skew of the service bar in with my two workhorses. So again, if anyone wants to come off mute, we could break down how you're going to break down your business. We can do that, but it's important that you put some thought into like, how do I get the best output out of this team or this station? I'm not saying it has to be every well. It's probably not efficient to do it that way, but you want to look at what's effective groupings. Okay, because once we have that, now we want to know, okay, well, how many dollars does that station take during peak hours? And we apply the current profit metric to it. But then we start to say, okay, let's look at what they're doing now and then set new targets for them. Right? And then your team is coming in reporting against those targets on a daily basis. And as mentioned earlier, this takes a bit to set up, but once it's set up, it's plug and play. Right? It's in there. So here, this is what it can look like that we come in and say, right, we're going to say, we've got at this particular business here, this mock business that we have, it's Thursday, there's only two stations open and there's only two peak hours. Friday, three peak hours and three stations. Friday, it's busier later. There's four peak hours and three stations. Right? So we have the target, which, as I said last call, typically I do it in a 13-week run. I punch out the highest and the lowest, take the outliers out, the night that someone came in and bought a case of Dom or whatever, and a night that there was a power outage, the lowest one, we take those out. And then we're looking then to set our target from that average, right? A really easy back of thumb rule is that we set up 20% higher than the current average. And almost all businesses hit that pretty quickly. You just start performing faster from the Hawthorne effect alone. The fact that your staff see a target, they understand that you're chasing these numbers, that you're trying to assemble the right team, not necessarily your top 3 bartenders on one station, but like a grinder, someone who's happy to run the service bar and someone who's, a workhorse in between there. We want to get that team goal up. And with that, when the staff come in, this is how I typically would report. Oh, I don't know where there's a compass board there. As I've shown you, I had these big ugly things at all my properties. Because they were big and ugly, they certainly caught people's attention. Everyone paid attention to them. Every shift you went in, you saw your targets, went out with your team, fucking hit your numbers. And if you didn't, you came in and, kind of please explain. And we just had a board up that said post shift 1% improvement. Based on your experience tonight, tell us. The same person that wrote their actual dollar value in had to write at least one idea that would have made us faster, better, stronger. And often when they miss their numbers by a bunch, there'd be 2 or 3 ideas because people would be frustrated. Not because they missed the number, but they realized we're underperforming. We were full. The bar was full. We've done this before dozens of times. We hit $5,000 an hour dozens of times, and tonight we hit 4,500. Why? Why did that happen? Let's see if we can tweak it a little bit. This all making sense so far with the numbers?
Yeah, Sean, I have a question.
Yeah.
Adrian and I were talking earlier this morning just about the component of the net sales or net cost. So just so we're clear, so it should just be the prime cost of beverage, factor in labor, and that's what we're using for our net profitability on beverage. We're not worrying about bottom of the P&L expenses, appreciation, depreciation, interest, all that stuff. We're just looking at that top line revenue, right?
That's right. You want to look at that. You want to apply. So, applying your beverage costs, because that's you're not going to do a stock take every time you run a report. So you're going to apply that beverage cost into there, your revenue, your labor. We're going to talk about next week in different ways to help you set up your P&L a little bit differently. But you want to get your labor in there. One final idea on this, and it's it's a little bit off of what we're talking about, but I think it's still super important, is that for all of my days of the week, we had an individual or set of P&Ls. So like, what does it take to make money on a Monday? Right? This is how many staff are coming in. This is what's happening. And this is collective now. This is food, drink. But my team understood, like, I wanted to be a 7-day-a-week profitable business. And the venues that I had that were open only 6 days a week, they wanted to open a 7th. I said, you promise me, you show me how we're going to make money on this day. But they knew, and in that we had to have an agreement by our leadership team. We kind of voted by consensus on this stuff, but we had 2 different ways of calculating that P&L. One was a straight run cost divided by 7 days. So the rent, for example, is $7,000 a week. I'm making up numbers. It was $1,000 a day. Other teams voted to have a weighted rent component. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday paid a higher value than the other days a week. And then if we were closed, we're going to, issue an amount to that, but it'd be negligible because we're paying it now anyways, and we want to get open on that day. So that's a kind of a more advanced step to this. But when you train your leadership team to look like day by day, shift by shift, how are we performing? And then what changes could we make or should we consider as a result of that 4-hour block of our lives? Like, this is how I took 8 businesses that were bankrupt and brought them forward, because the week was the week. Like, by the time the week happened, it's like the war was over. We wanted to win every battle, each step along the way. And I realized you can't do that alone. You have to have the whole team thinking, but we'll evolve into that as we build these spreadsheets out. And then we kind of kept this running. So we looked at Thursday, they knew that, hey, if you were below $1,500, you were in yellow. To get into green, took 1,800, 1,900 plus. And we wanted to look at our super greens too, because we wanted to figure out what the hell's happening. Like, why is it when this team's on or this individual keeps showing up, you'll start to see patterns. You're like, man, every time we're in the red, if this person's involved or this happens, right? And sometimes it's pressure on the bars, right? We open this bar later and this bar, there's reasons sometimes. There's always a reason. But it's when you start to find patterns in that, But when you get to this point, guys, and your team comes in and knows that, like, don't ask to be scheduled on Friday night on the main bar if you can't be part of the team that puts out $2,500, right? We might give you an opportunity to do it once or twice, but once you're the reason they can't hit that and you're just not quick enough yet, and you're not only not quick enough, but you can't have that great smile and deliver that great hospitality at the same time, then you need not ask to be scheduled on the 2 or 3 shifts a week when we take, 30, 40, 50% of our money. Now, the individual side, this becomes important because the spread is a lot more dramatic than what's displaying on the screen right now. And, it's when we look at this in 3 sections, the top people on the team, when we focus on them and work with them and help them to find these 1, 2, 3% improvements, they get faster and faster. The big mistake that bars have is they leave their top 20% alone. Your top 20% of employees should get more attention than your bottom 20%, right? Because they will continue to develop, they'll continue to grow, and you'll find that with your top 20 is like, fuck, they could work hard for 2 hours a shift and still outperform everyone else in 5 hours, right? So let's find a way to get them growing and improving as we go. Middle of the pack will constantly chase the leaders and they'll keep moving up. And the bottom of the pack, it's like at some point you got to draw a threshold and say, listen, if we can't get you to here, we're not going to be able to schedule you Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, right? We'll keep you on during the week. You're a great person. We love having you. But when we look at the opportunity cost of putting someone on that does 490 versus the person that does 650, right? We're talking about $600 a shift of revenue and guests that are now waiting far too long for the drinks. All right, so it's important. We produced our revenue by employee every month, and we allowed them to comment on it. And some people would say, hey, dude, I know that because you got me on fucking bar 3, right? Like, that's fine. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just showing you. And there'd be a lot of great dialogue as a result of this. And then we'd curate it according to bars and so on and so forth. But I'm a big believer in letting people know where they stand. I've worked at a bar before where I believed I was the second quickest there. I believed I was delivering the best hospitality. And I was the only one that didn't get along with Sarah, the fucking manager who scheduled people. And I got shit shifts. And I think that's bullshit, right? Like, if you're claiming to run a meritocracy, then do that. In order to do that, you have to be honest with where people are at and what they need to do to improve.
Hey, Sean, have you had people in the past who are pooled houses where this gets a lot trickier to track? And have you done, I mean, that could be a separate call, obviously, if it's intricate, but like we have some bars where A, they're pooled with the floor, but B, there's 2 bartenders on there ringing under one number. So obviously I'm like, all right, well, let's stop the one number thing. But at that point, one person has to be tied to service bar and they can't tag team it. They have we have a habit of 2 people tag team in service and work in the bar. And it's really hard to nail these numbers down when they're doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And so that is common. And what I would say to that is that you're now the individual. It's hard to track, of course, but those 2 people that are ringing the same number, that's the team, that's the station,
Okay.
right? And those 2 people have to produce better numbers than the other 2 people, or you know what I mean. So you got to isolate your bar the best that you can. It's never perfect, but in that case, you're saying, yeah, if you have 2 people attached to one key and they're responsible for the service bar, that's just a station saying, guys, like the number for you just during peak hours is X, and I need you to pursue that number. And we're going to be able to compare that number Friday to Friday, Saturday to Friday, and we're going to be able to coach you from there and let you know where you stand.
So it's not as much tied to their personal averages. It's up bar team, and then that's what they got to hit. Just giving them a goal, and as opposed to like, yo, your tip average sucks.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'd be saying, like, if you're looking at the screen there, you know, Thursday, that might be main bar station 3 is one ring key and the service bar. So it'd say that. It'd say there's two individuals also monitoring the service bar, and they are expected to be delivering during or between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. They're expected to deliver $2,700.
Does that include service bar drinks?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
yeah. If it's not separated out, because
Yeah.
whatever the number is, you just want it to be better, right?
Yeah.
Like that's at the end of the day, if you can take the current average and move it up by 20%, like everyone wins.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is just running the numbers, like looking between A and B. It doesn't look like a lot, $600 an hour just for, how many hours per week was it? 15 hours per week. That's $150,000 worth of revenue. A $100 difference per hour over the course of 15 hours a week. Right? When you start looking at these numbers and realize that, some of you have got 10, 20, 50 bartenders, and they are at all different levels. And we just haven't been tracking it to say, hey, we could do better and we could make the bar better, right? Little incremental changes. Like I mentioned last call, I spent like $5,000 having a well-cut but like an IKEA, it wasn't quite IKEA, but this drop-in insert kind of piece of shit um, well for the bar that was just deeper, set up better, whatever else. And I'm like, why are we spending $5,000? I watched these numbers skyrocket, right? I had my money back in about a month off of that, which means for the next 11 months, I'm just getting paid $5,000 a month for, they said to me, this is a pain in the ass. Like, not enough ice in here. It's not set up properly. This is what we want. And we figured out a way to do that. But these individual performances are what's making up your revenue. And 150 grand getting one person to go $100 or yeah, $100 an hour faster. Okay. I keep coming back to the fact that awareness is everything, right? If you talk about this, all your staff are thinking is like every other idea he's mentioned to us or she's mentioned to us, this is going to go away. We'll just wait her out, wait him out. I did not. This is how I made my money. I used to go into other people's businesses and put these shitty boards up and fucking set up an ATM machine. Because once people are paying attention to those 15 hours a week, like it just starts to go. And we never stopped talking about it. They had to fill out a very simple, very quick, but every single shift, we had a post-shift analysis. And with that, we'd get every 20 ideas we'd get would be dog shit. The 21st idea would be gold. Right? So don't give up. Just keep reading, keep talking, and keep finding ways. And you realize that your staff have all worked somewhere else, or most of them have, and some of them continue to work somewhere else. And they start to think when they're there, like, what are we doing here that we could bring to my other job and win that $50 gift certificate or get a pat on the back by the boss? Okay, if that's not enough of the numbers in the chat, Ali's dropped in there a spreadsheet that we've created to calculate at a pretty intricate level, but you can use it to the degree that you'd like. But it also helps you figure out the size of the prize, right? If we boost things by 10%, by 20%, by 30%, has anyone on this call calculated, what would happen if you got your business cranking 20% quicker just during your peak hours? Anyone have that number? When I calculated mine, I couldn't sleep. It was just worth, it was like, I literally bought a cottage in Canada with the extra cash that started to come in. So I was like, fuck, I gotta make this happen. No one's calculated quite yet. Well, this spreadsheet will help you do that. And Ali is the owner of this spreadsheet. So if anyone has any questions, please just reach out to her. I'll just show you quickly what's there. The instructions, pretty straightforward. We're going to look at staff costs. in tab 2. So you got to adjust it for your state, for your pay levels. You look at profitability and return on investment in 3. 4, we're looking at current performance. So what your team is currently capable of. Number 5 works out some scenarios. So, that's set up because not everyone is going to increase, dramatically. Newer people, of course, are going to see larger gains than people that have been there for a long time. And you get your notes and recommendations in tab 6. And then that just pumps into your historical data. Our last piece for today is the ergonomics side of this, but is there any questions on the numbers? And I do appreciate that not everyone's a number person, but we are here if you want to jump on a call, if you're using the sheet or you just got questions, you could email, of course. No questions on that? Okay. Let's talk about ergonomics because this is where you're going to get a lot of your gains. And even if you've done this before, every single quarter you want to do this. You want to look at it because things continue to change. So number 1 is that 6-foot radius, easiest and best way. I mentioned last time, you tape off, just put a little piece of red tape here, piece of red tape there, 6 feet. Have someone just watch the bar during peak hours for 2.5, 3 hours. Write down every time a bartender breaks that threshold. What are they going to get? What product? Are they going to the sink? Are they going to the blender? Are they going to the dishwasher? What is it that they're doing that's taking them out of being there? Because if they walk further than 6 feet, say 10 feet, that's 10 seconds. 10 seconds is $1.60 of opportunity cost to get there and $1.60 to get back. So if we could put it in that zone, all the better. So you want to shrink that cost and you want to look at everything, right? Is there tools, garnishes? One client not everyone's able to do this, of course, but they took their POS, a small unit from the back, turned it to the front. The bartenders had to turn less. They didn't have to break eye contact. Now they had to move the glassware, so they had to make adjustments, but it was worth it. It worked. Backup stock, whatever it might be. Popular products. If you got some product that you're crushing that's on your cocktail list, maybe that should be in your speed well, not at the end of the bar where it used to live. Okay, that's reasons to do it. We already talked about that. Standardization. This is the biggest pushback for bartenders. It works, especially if you have same bartenders work multiple bars for you. Having them get into muscle memory and just head up and looking where they're going. And in order to do this, we kind of sketched out everything here and we labeled everything. And this was part of the audit. If they didn't follow this, if they kept changing the fridges back, if they kept moving things back, we didn't have it. It was like, fuck, we agreed we're going to do this and try it for 60 days. And you guys got to follow the bouncing ball. Benchmark shifts. I strongly encourage you guys to Scott mentioned earlier, he's got 2 bartenders that are ringing on the same key. They're also responsible for service bar. I'm not saying necessarily your 2 best bartenders, but the 2 bartenders that work best together, have them go and set a benchmark shift. Have them do 3 hours and say, hey guys, I'll feed you beforehand. I'll buy you a drink after the shift. I need you to put your head down for 3 hours and show me what you can pump out of this bar. Right? When you ask them to do that, you're going to see they'll be 20, 25, 30% higher than what a normal shift is. And that just shows what happens when you don't take bathroom breaks or vaping or fucking around or whatever it might be. These are just other things that were big deals for people in overall in the program. At our venues, we had a all hands on mentality during prime time. So we had a light in all the bars. The customers wouldn't know what they were, but when this light went on, we were in prime time. And it was only turned on or off by the person running the business that day. And that meant if you need to go to the bathroom, if you can't hold yourself for 2.5 hours, okay, maybe that's your condition, but we want you to do your best. No cigarettes, no fucking eating, no this. Your girlfriend comes in, talk to her afterwards. General manager, don't be fucking around in the office. Get out on the floor and support. Everyone, all hands on. We had 15, 16 hours a week. Not a big ask. Portable bars. So we set up for Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights a portable bar that we didn't use the rest of the week. It just pumped canned beer, RTDs, and wine. And we channeled it was beside the service bar because the service bar was busy servicing the restaurant and everything else. We just figured different configurations. Batching mini bottles, we loved. So we batched into mini bottles. Customers loved that. Big glass, big chunk of ice, the orange garnish, and a little mini bottle of Negroni. Keg cocktails, we didn't do that back then, but people have great luck with it now. We had a high scoreboard for people that like fucking crushed it on certain nights, and there was a prize for that. And a speed menu. So this won't work for all of you, but we had a regular menu, and for 15 hours a week, we had a cut down menu for the bar. These are and if someone said, "Oh, I thought you guys had a bigger cocktail list. We'd love to see the full list." We gave them the full list. Of course we did. But 90% of people were happy with the speed list. And they were the best, most popular drinks. If they wanted something else, we'd get them something else. We're going to talk about labor next week. And then finally, I wanted to just share with you, our design theory was challenge everything. Every single aspect of the bar, fucking challenge it. Maybe we could do it better. Maybe we could rip it apart, rebuild it. We just challenged everything that was going on around us, including the POS configuration. Like, could that be 3 seconds faster every round we put in? Right? We said to our POS company, we're a busy bar. I'm sure you guys like telling people that we use your shit. Help us make this faster. Come in, and we want this thing to be a lot faster, a lot better. Show us how to do that. They know how to do that. And as I mentioned, we simplified everything that we could. Right? We realized a lot of shit that we cared about, our customers didn't care about. Right? So why have 8 different types of stem glassware when it doesn't fucking matter to them? Maybe you're a venue that it does matter, keep it. But if it doesn't, don't do that. We decrease complexity, you increase hospitality, quality, and in my experience, guest satisfaction. So working through it, you want to look at every aspect of your station and layout. Is there anything that we can do differently here? Right? The way your garnish trays are set up, the way your backup fruit's set. You're finding that someone's to cut limes halfway through peak hours because, start to think about what little improvements could we make here. Staffing strategy we're going to talk about next week. This is the second biggest gain that you're going to get. And a lot of you are going to say, I don't know. And I'm going to challenge you to try what I'm suggesting because it almost always works. Doesn't always work, but it almost always works. Menu engineered for speed. I just talked about that. And then the batch cocktails. Like I am seeing every single month, like some of the biggest bars, most popular bars in the world switching over. All right. Like batching makes sense for a lot of your drink. Your POS, I just mentioned that too. I would definitely challenge and get your POS company involved. And I would tell your POS company too, like what I used to do when I reached out to people like my POS company is say, hey, I'm a geek. I have the data. I want to improve. Why don't you come in here and help us get this 5 seconds faster every order or whatever it is. And if you do, I'm going to write a big fucking article about you and post it out and tell everyone about it. And you're welcome to share it if it worked, right? If it works, and I'll say, hey, we weren't using your system as well as we could have. We're doing better now. Here's what we think it'll pay off annually by doing this. And they'll put someone good on your account to do that if they've got a payout. Looking at your prep work, this is something that we were fanatical about, like minimal waste, but maximum productivity during prime time. Who does it? When does it happen? What happens when it breaks down? Or we need to looking at your service flow. This is for those of you that have hosts, seating in the restaurant. Like we're just trying to figure out exactly what we can do in order to improve flow and optimize output. And then the metrics that you're looking at here, average ticket times and all that, this is kind of more advanced step. But things like, obviously knowing your top five of this and that, and making sure that you're prioritizing that, your comps, all of that sort of stuff. Any questions on any of that, guys? I know there's a lot there, and there's a lot of little tweaks when it comes to your bar program. Is there any questions on that, or has anyone discovered a couple things they'd like to share with the group that might help everybody here? I know Scott mentioned he's made some changes already.
Yeah, I think we dropped our list down like maybe 10 cocktails on average, and then but we had really big ones, and then got about like our top dozen batched out. Um, I guess one question I had going back when we're figuring out our labor costs, we now have some batched labor that's kind of shared between different restaurants, but where they're getting more like a higher hourly to come in and just batch stuff out. So that all goes into factors in, right? Put that in the weekly bar budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely supporting your bar program. And I think in the next week or two, it's going to be cool when Dan gets back from Dan and Julius are going to Dead Rabbit, and I'm sure he's going to share his notes with us about what he's learning there, and finding out too, like looking at a batch program, the way that Dead Rabbit does it is going to be. I think everyone's going to learn a lot from what they're doing. But they're doing it in a way that most people wouldn't, like to an nth degree, where they're using something like 50% of their back or their business's back of house now. So for those of you that have been in Dead Rabbit, like you're seeing 50% of that property, and they've got, it might not be quite 50, it might be 55-45, but it's a disproportionate amount where a business like that, you typically have 75-25, right? But that's what it takes to do their volume of cocktails, which is, that's a business doing well over $1 million a month, not of cocktails, but in total. That's what it takes to do that at that volume, at that quality. And that just kept growing over time.
Can you guys? I tried to go back and find the Dead Rabbit like employee training thing that we had access to. Is there any way you guys can post that again?
You can get that, Allie? Yeah, Allie's gonna dig it up.
Thanks.
Cool. We've got a few more minutes. Any other questions on this or anything else?
John, I have one for you.
Yeah.
So with our we kind of we go back and forth with like wanting to have a cocktail list that's big enough to be exciting and new, and like have the regulars have different cocktails to try, but then also am I wrong when, like, if your cocktail list is too big and you're trying to make your peak hours more efficient when you only have so many seats at your bar and so many people in that peak hours willing to spend money, if they're looking through this gigantic cocktail list, are we losing money by them taking so long to decide on a cocktail?
Yeah. So a couple of things here. I think that for every business, like figuring out, doing a quick survey with your guests as to, what they want or what they think is exciting, or even understanding like what level they're at. My experience is, and I've looked at hundreds of cocktail lists against a business, right? Like, does this make sense for the business? Most cocktail lists are intimidating to their guests, right? They're overwhelming because it's just so big. Secondly, you can't even read it. It's normally, 4-point font and listing ingredients you've never even heard of before. Like, I find a lot of cocktail lists intimidating. I've been in this industry my whole life. I'm like, what the hell is this? I've never even heard of this ingredient. And I think that's a problem, right? Like you want to, yes, you want to move your guests, you want to take them 15, 25, 30%, on a journey. No one wants to go 300%. No one wants to learn what Malort is and how, the battle between Fernet and Malort and the monk that makes whatever. It's like no one needs to know that. So I think first off, like just getting a sense, and we would the question that we found very illuminating when we talk to our guests, we'd have the hosts, right? But he or she's working there anyways. And when people leave, how was your night? And having a chat and say, hey, you might know, we got this question we've been asking people, maybe two questions like, what do you think of our cocktail program here? And they'll tell you use words like intimidating or I've tried it, I didn't like your drinks, or they love it. And then you might ask them what they love about it. But the illuminating question was, if you were going to go for a night of cocktails and you weren't here, where would you go? And what we found almost always, they pointed towards a bar that were reasonably priced and really simple and a lot of classics.
Hmm.
That was my experience at the research. Now, if you're, running a higher end cocktail bar, which I didn't, they might be saying, yeah, your list is inferior to, this venue here. But when it comes to cocktails, Dan will see this next week when he goes to Dead Rabbit. Their cocktail list now is, I believe it's 8 drinks, but what they do to double it up is they take the drink and then their spin on it, right? So it's the same drink with just either a different method or a different ingredient in it. So that you're training your staff on 8 to make 8 delicious, perfect drinks with a twist, and now you've got 16 drinks. And you could do that one more time if you want, have 24 drinks, right? So that's the way that I look at it. The lesson that I learned on this years ago before Varnish closed, and they only closed because it's downtown LA and what's happening there right now, and said Moses's venue. But it was one of my favorite cocktail bars in the country. And I saw their cocktail list. They won best cocktail list that tells the cocktail for an American bar. It had 9 drinks on it. And I thought it was the insert. I thought, where's the best cocktail bar? They must have like 50 cocktails. I happen to be going to LA a couple days later. I show up at Varnish. I ask for the list. They give it to me. It's got 7 drinks on it. It's a new list. It's got 7. And I said, you got to tell me, why is there only 7 drinks on here? He said, well, we wanted to have 9 or 10, but after we did the pre-launch and everything else, we could only really commit to doing 7 perfectly during peak hours. And I mean, was one of the top cocktail bars in the country. And their customers loved the drinks. I sat there and watched people working their way through the list. Right. So I'd rather go to your bar and have 8 awesome, perfect drinks than 28 drinks that people are fumbling through. Make sense?
Yes, thank you. That does.
Yeah. Yeah. And it won't excite your bartenders, I'll tell you that. But that's not really what I was in business for. I want to make them happy, but I want to delight my guests, right? And scratching their creative itch. As I said, I used to say to them, guys, you got to get in the kitchen. We got all kinds of recipes and fucking mixing bowls and funny hats and all. It'd be awesome for you. Get back there. Oh, there's no girls back there or cute guys or whatever. It's hot.
Yeah.
Angry men with knives. Yeah, okay. Well, pick a lane. All right, we're up at 4 o'clock. Is there any other questions or anything you guys want to discuss? I just noticed Smiling Dan's new background there. It looks very sultry. Almost looks like a commercial on TV, Dan. What's going on there?
It's my house.
Oh, you're at home.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good. Great.
Yeah, everything under control?
Yeah, we've got a big country concert that's 3 days out here, so they hired us to do food for the band and the crews and stuff. So we got like 120 people a day. So Julius is running that. That's why he's off camera. They're getting that set up. They built us kind of a mini restaurant inside of an AC tent. So cool
Oh,
opportunity.
cool. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are getting all the cool gigs out there. That's awesome. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, next week, I want to challenge your thinking on labor. To give you the teaser for it, but before I got to Sydney, I worked for what I considered one of the best restaurant companies in Europe, and they ran kind of straight labor, probably the same way that you guys do. And because we challenged everything, like once we ran into things to challenge when it came to the bar, we started looking at not only different ways to calculate labor, but different ways to use labor. And then it all came down, like our guiding metric before that was our labor percentage, which is what it is, right? We take the amount of labor hours by our designated revenue, which in this case would be beverage. And then we started to say, okay, well, how could we get, what goals do we want to achieve with our people? A lot of it was revenue, right, during prime time. Other times it was more driving databases and deepening relationships and so forth. But we'll focus next week on driving the revenue higher. And we're going to look at that in return on investment. So I'm going to show you some scenarios and different positions and the way that we shift, the way that we cross train. There's a few really simple moves that not only yielded us a much higher revenue number, it made everybody happy, right? Took pressure off certain areas in the business that burned people out. It benefited our leadership team, who were often playing that role but not doing it very well, and often not doing their core job when they were covering other areas. And it also acted as a great testing ground for people that were going to come up into our business in full-time positions, whether it be server, host, could be in the kitchen, but certainly on the bar. So we're going to tackle that on Tuesday, and up front we'll take on any sort of questions or learnings that you guys have had and trying to implement some of this over the weekend. But it's all going to come together in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to have a central tracking sheet for you guys as well, so that we can kind of look at wins and where you guys get wins or you have challenges, and I can help you tackle those real time. I'll check it every morning.